Okay, hey everybody. So, like I mentioned previously, this is really just a reflective piece that I wanted to do to kind of be more in tune with myself, how I'm feeling, and just be a bit more present, give you a little bit of the insight behind the photos, how I was feeling, and just share us a little bit, more personal this year. So we're going to start off with some of the favorites in which I picked out because he snapped more than dozens of photos, if I'm being quite frank, hundreds of photos at once. So I got my setup a little bit around like late last year. I ended up acquiring the Sony A7 III and the Seafrog's housing with the dome port and other accessories. We can get right into it and start off with one of my first trips of the year. I went to Jupiter, Florida, and I was in Fort Lauderdale for New Year's. I had some friends out there, and we scheduled a dive out in Jupiter to do a shark dive. And on this dive, it was three dives. I dove on nitrox, and the whole goal and objective was to see sharks. But Mother Nature, we can't always predict, and she always keeps us on our toes. So we didn't really see any sharks, but we saw Goliath grouper. So how I'm gonna kind of really frame this is look at like the highs of the experience and the lows of it too. Some things how I felt probably during the moment that could have been better. An aha moment, so something that kind of was just like instant like, I never thought about that in the moment. 3 things I learned from the experience and 4 things that I can improve upon, and some goals that I kind of set for myself moving afterwards. So this first photo of this Goliath grouper, we were probably around. So these first few photos are going to be of the Goliath grouper, or Epinephelus itahara, and it's also known as a Jewfish. And groupers can get upwards to like 8, Goliath groupers at least, upwards to like 8 to 9 feet, over 800 pounds, just super massive. But the ones I'm going to show, they were probably around like about 6 feet, and probably around like 450, 6.5 feet, I say, and like 450 pounds. We were probably around like 70 feet, and it was a wreck dive. They had like an old cargo boat that was down at the bottom, sunken down off the coast of Jupiter, sandy bottom, and we're descending down, and we see one, and it was a bit on the smaller side, and it was around like 4 feet. So we were like, oh, okay, a Goliath grouper, just because they're such a beautiful animal just to see in general. But then once we start kind of cruising around, we start seeing multiple. So I believe there was a total of 4. And in this photo in particular, we have one that came right through and passed right in front of me, and I was able to get a good shot. And note, this was like my first time using my camera in the setup on a dive. So I kind of tested out just a little bit in the pool before, like free diving out in California, but this is like my first like go at it. So I was super proud of myself. So that was a good high for me. Initially, I hadn't really had my ISO speed down nor my exposure. So when I looked into them in the edit, it was like, oh man, it was super like bright, but I kind of like the aesthetic that it was giving off. It was giving off a very retro-esque kind of energy, and it reminded me of like Jacques Cousteau and how he, really trailblazed the scuba diving industry, and it reminded me of some of the films in which he used to produce. And I kind of, leaned into it a bit. So I turned that low into kind of an aha moment, like, I can really get very creative with these different shots and how I'm going about it. And I wasn't nervous by any means, just because I feel like after working with sharks and other just like larger megafauna in the ocean, you got to remain calm. And I'm on scuba, so scuba is a slow calming sport, so you have to keep your composure in order to maximize your dive time so that you can stay down below and enjoy yourself. So I wasn't really nervous in regards to like emotion. I was more so amazed, respectful, guarded, if you will, just on like some making sure I got the distance between myself and the animal with my dome port. So I was never really too phased there, and I felt super comfortable. As you can see, we had others, you know, with the GoPro, some of my buddies who was with me, and you just kind of feel the energy of the animal itself. So for this third image, I have a good friend of mine. She's like family, my friend Natalie. This was her first time diving in a while, and she, you know, encouraged me to get out to Florida because she had a group trip with her friends, and I was able to meet her friends, lovely individuals. And it was just a nice shot of her diving silhouette. Yeah, I just thought it was just like a cool little artsy piece, you know. You can use that as a profile photo if you want, avatar, or you can even, like on the Apple, you can detach the image and just make it looks like a little logo to me. So I just saw that opportunity and I shot it. Definitely could reduce some of the blue that's in there in the post edit, but other than that, I genuinely enjoyed the shot. So overall, my Jupiter experience was super fun. It was super fun. I made the most of the situation. Didn't get a chance to see too many sharks. Probably like 3 in the beginning. We saw a couple bulls and a lemon, but other than that, the seas was rocking. Not gonna lie, the boat was rocking. Others start getting seasick. I don't get seasick, but I almost pulled trig, and oof, ugh. That was kind of like my shoots in January. So now we can move over to some of the shots that I got late January and early February. Moving on down into late January, early February, back out in California, like the San Diego area, or a little bit north of San Diego, to go like practice my free diving, just because during this time I hadn't really found an area out, you know, in LA or near LA to do such that bears so much wildlife and biodiversity. And I tend to try to find something new, and on this particular day I wanted to get Garibaldi, and they're kind of like the marine goldfish. So Garibaldi is also known as Hysopops bunketus, and that's their scientific name. And yeah, they're a species of damselfish, and they look like big goldfish, pretty much. They look like a big goldfish. On this particular photo, I was on a bit of a descent coming back up from around, like, it was like 20 feet, very shallow diving area, and I noticed that it was coming up right by the sun, and how like the sun was the rays were shining down. So I knew that was just going to be a good silhouette shot. I dropped my exposure a bit so that I can darken the Garibaldi just a bit. You can still see a little bit of the orange in there if you look closely, but had to focus on the sun rays itself. And then, as you can see, there's other Garibaldi in the background. Just kind of learning the lighting and everything. I don't have any strobes on my housing, so I have to use the sun a bit more often and kind of just learn the advantages of it and what kind of angle and what kind of shot I want to get out of it. So just manipulating it just a bit. I enjoyed it. I saw that as soon as it was happening, I'm like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a good shot. So that was a good high for me. A low was, I wish I could have got more, or even one that was just like the sun was shining on it, but I would have had to go on the other side. An aha moment was the moment in which I saw it, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be a good shot. And then 3 things I learned is positioning. I had a good position there where I was slightly under. I was very still, so I didn't spook it. It was very natural. I didn't, you know, extend myself out to try to obtain the shot. Not gonna lie, I think this is a good shot though. I think this is a cool shot. February, so I had my guy, my friend, my brother, Khalid Kareem. We grew up together about this time last year, or a little bit earlier. Fortunate enough to be in the Super Bowl, and he hit me up like, yo man, I'm interested in this field that you in, and I really want to get involved, like let's tap in. So that's my brother, so it was like nothing, no time has changed, has really passed, so we chopped it up and we started getting involved, and took him out to the Bahamas last year. And when he told me that he was back in Cali, we had to get a dive in, so I took him out to Catalina, and we went on a couple scuba dives there, and we saw a plethora of animals, and it was just a super dope experience for me and for Lid. And one of the photos in this series that I thought was pretty cool was of the sheep's head. So the California sheep's head, this scientific name is Semicosaphus poacher, and they are a part of the wrasse family. And they can get up to they can live up to 53 years, get about 3 feet in length, and they are very important to the ecosystem. So when I saw it, it was just super dope for me to see. I know they're quite common. Their special status, their species status, is vulnerable, so they're not quite endangered, but I've always enjoyed seeing them. Usually when I'm there, I see a lot of kelp bass or just other of the smaller fish, but when you see more of a large one, it's exciting to see. These are keystone predators. So keystone meaning just like a keystone piece and like an arch, they're important. And they're important predators because they predate on the grazers, like the lobsters, the urchins, and other grazers that kind of will take over a kelp forest and kind of diminish the kelp forest, so they keep them in check. So with them being there, things don't get out of hand. So, and it came right across the face. I think it saw itself in the dome, and it was a little bit curious, so it stayed around with us for a little bit, and I paused there for a second just so I can get a couple of the shots. And I really went from a a natural color of it to a little bit of the black and white from it. I enjoyed its contrast, as it has the males, they'll have this colorful head, and then it gradients back into the black. And fun fact about these sheephead, so they have hermaphroditic capabilities, meaning that they're all born female, but when it's time to mate, female can turn into a male and have a harem, whereas one male and multiple females. And if that male is casted out or it dies, a female can turn into a male to then continue on the breeding cycle, which is super interesting and super dope. So being able to see that male there and just get the different angles of it, again, one of the improvements I feel like I could have done is still trying to get that ISO underway. It was a bit of a blur, but I loved it because it was still a bit clear and it still gave off some artistic expression, which I rock with. Could have done buoyancy on the scuba end, just because I had a 7 mil, and I usually don't wear 7 mils. That's the wetsuit thickness, because I usually run hot. So I usually stick to my 5, but I had my 7 on. So just getting that compensated correctly. I felt good though. It was a good dive. Felt comfortable, felt confident. All of my gear was good and checked. And then it was just also very good seeing it. I appreciate how close it got, so I was able to get those bit of an intimate shots and really get the detail of his face, of his teeth, and of his scales. So that was a good one for me. And then the second one that we have are the sea lions in the back. It was a silhouette of those guys, and we were probably around 70 feet then where they were in the backdrop, and they was just twirling around and super cool to see. One of my favorites from this dive specifically was that of a cormorant. Now in this photo you'll see that it is out of focus, too fast, blurry, but I embraced it just because that's how the moment felt. So when I first saw it, we were probably around 80 feet, and we were trailing back around to come back up towards our starting position, and before we start doing our safety stops. And I'm looking, and it's a big school of fish there, so I'm like, okay, cool, let me get a couple shots of the fish. But then I just see something dart down super fast amongst that school of fish. And in my head, immediately, I'm like, okay, that's a cormorant, which is a bird. But then I start realizing how deep we were, just zooming through the water. And then that's how I was just on the click, 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 click. And I was able to get a little bit of a silhouette. So I thought it was cool just because it signified the moment. It was a blur. Everything was super fast and intense. If I had my shutter and my ISO different, probably would have been able to capture it more clearly. Even though it wasn't the clearest, I still enjoyed it the most. So that's a cormorant at 80 feet, which is wild. So those were some of the shots from like the February dive that I went on. And then I had a later one where I went back to San Diego, back down in the cove though. Saw a couple lobsters. I enjoyed this photo right here just due to the fact that they were kind of tucked in underneath, and it was just very colorful that day. The red and the greens was very vibrant. It was a nice and clear day. And you know how like those you'll go into like a pub or something and you'll see like pictures of animals doing human things. Like for some reason when I looked at them, I just pictured them like smoking a cigar just in the cut of the club, just like chilling. So I don't know, that's kind of where my mind went when I was there. And I took the shot. It was a bit of a rocky day, honestly. So keeping myself still enough to get those shots was a bit challenging. And I still have yet to get the weights for the housing, so the buoyancy there was a little bit awry and just knocking me off. But I did the best I can. I ended up getting a cool little shot from underneath the rocks. I got some water shots too of just like the waves going over and getting like the waves washing through and like the bubbles and everything going underneath. I love how water's so beautiful. It takes up any form. It's very powerful, and I feel like in this image it symbolized power, and water's rushing just to move right back out. And we kind of have those battles within ourselves, right, where it's like we rush to slow down, so it was a very interesting thought process as I was trying to get those shots. I was keeping myself controlled in the middle of the chaos and staying calm amongst it all. So I enjoyed taking that one. One of the Fridays that I was off, which was rare, I went and took my cousin down to one of my free diving spots I normally go to just as like a meditative place and just for me to like practice my diving. And she hit me like, yo, like, I'm trying to go do what you do. I'm like, oh, bet. And that really touched me just because not a lot of people reach out to really like do it. They say that, that they want to and whatever. And of course I'm down and open to teach, but really this is like a follow through. So it was just super dope for, my little cousin to be interested in the field and I'm interested in and going out to go do it. So got some gear from the dive shop and we took the ride out. Very scenic day along the coast. So we got out there, we walked over down to the spot and got in, and it's like a kelp forest, like a nice little pocket, and it's protected. So meander around a little bit and we found our spot, and she was like, oh, let me get the camera. I'm like, cool, all right, bet. So she snapped these photos of me, and it's rare that I'm in front of the camera nowadays. I used to more when I did the show, but nowadays it's like I gotta shoot or try to do a selfie with the dawn, which is I haven't tried that one yet. But it was just super cool to have her step outside of her comfort zone and try something different, and she did a really good job. I'm super proud of her, and she was just like, man, like, I could be a photographer too. I'm like, yeah, you can. You well on your way. So she took these shots of me just frolicking around a little bit, diving down, looking for lobsters, looking just for other things that we can kind of take photos of. And then she got this good one of me swimming back up. And the one in color was actually super cool, but I just like the aesthetic of the black and white. It kind of slowed everything down and simplified it and made you pay more attention to the detail of not only the subject, which it was me and myself, but of the surrounding habitat, and a little bit of the kelp and the rocks and the colors, how like the contrast makes the viewer think like, okay, what would it look like in color? And if anybody was curious, I can also post it and show you, no problem, or just insert it like right here. And then with the other ones, just like going through on the surface, snorkeling down and looking at the kelp. I absolutely love the kelp. Oh my goodness, I could build a house there and thrive and just be the kelp king or Aquaman or whatever you want to coin it. But I love it a lot, and it's just super magical. I don't know, for me it forces me to be calm, because you don't know what's like, you know, swimming through it. And I saw a harbor seal that popped up on me, and it's just moments like that where it's like, man, it's like life amongst the kelp. It's like an underwater rainforest, really. Just if you was to go through the rainforest and there's so much life, same way as the kelp. So I love it there. A lot of people can't handle the cold, but if you can get past that, because really a mental thing, you can get past that cold and build that tolerance, I highly recommend people going to dive out to the kelp forest. It's a beautiful place to be, And anybody want to go on a tour, holla at me, let me know, and we can make it happen. But yeah, that's a bit of the recap of these first 3 months of the year, kind of just like photo by photo. I had a different way I wanted to do this, but I'm glad everything kind of just worked out and pieced it. And you know, you gotta make do what you got, what you have, you know. So that's kind of like a bringing it all in kind of piece. Overall, my highs were being able to dive with friends, being able to share that space with those I love and care about, just because it can be a lonely journey just when you're probably the only one interested, or you're the only one that's kind of comfortable with being uncomfortable and stepping outside of different zones. And I never try to put that pressure on anybody to, you know, do what I do, but it's cool when they show that initiative to at least, you know, gain some insight about what I do. So that was super, that made me feel good. It made me feel good. A second thing that I got from it was experience. Just being able to learn, and I love learning. I love obtaining a new skill and seeing new things, messing up so that I can learn from it. I don't really view like L's as losses, but lessons, and just really learning from past behaviors and changing them as I see fit. Couple lows, I wish I would have got out there more. I really want to go like every week, and that's going to be a goal for this next quarter coming up. Just try to go at least once a week, so 4 times out the month at least. Get more scuba diving in, of course, some free dive practice, and just gain these certifications and learn a little bit more about the camera, and kind of get it to where I know my settings down pat, and I don't really have to fidget too much in the water with it, because with the housing it's a little bit tough because of the buttons and whatnot underwater. So it's a whole thing. Aha moment is for me throughout this first quarter, this first 3 months, would probably be you never know who's watching, both in a mortal sense and in a nature sense. Like, you never know who's watching you from a human's perspective, or for the animals, because tons of different things. So it's just like super important to be present in the moment and be aware of your surroundings, your standings, your influence, where you are, where you plan on going. And being in that water just taught me to really identify how you feel with yourself. You know, it's been, this first 3 months has been super tough this year in a lot of aspects, but it's got to see it through. So that's a good place for me to just have that solace and that solitude, and being able to share it with others is dope as well. It's good for me as well. 4 things I want to really improve is my positioning in the water to obtain different shots and kind of manipulate the subjects and that I'm taking photos of. Definitely want to increase my breath hold a bit more. I'm probably right around, like, I know my PR is like 210. I'm probably getting like the 1:30, minute 30 range, which is good, but I really have a goal this year to get up to like 4 to 5 minutes, so I can like really optimize my time down there and just chill out, you know. I think a third for me would be, like I said, the frequency, getting out there more, trusting the first shot for sure, and kind of getting good at first takes. Okay, cool, boom. I'm gonna keep shooting now. I'm gonna keep shooting just so I can get the familiarity and the comfortability with it, but being able to be like, oh yeah, for sure, boom, and not have to compensate with the shooting it so much and going through hundreds of photos all at once. And the goal for this upcoming quarter is I got some good trips on the way. I got some very dope trips on the way. I'm looking forward to reuniting with some family of mine and doing some research, as well as exploring different landscapes. So one of my goals is to get some landscape shots, get some shots of others, some people, wildlife wise, more sharks, more sharks for sure, and then get some photos of me going on dive, like scuba dives. I'm trying to get at least like 10 dives in this next quarter, which would be super helpful for me in getting my certifications, as well as just my experience. So I'm shooting for like at least 10 dives. I'm gonna get that goal of just being in the water each week, whether that's just for a swim, free dive, or a scuba dive, and just keep shooting, take as much pictures as possible. And yeah, but that's a wrap on the quarter 1 review. Pray you all enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it. Like I said, for the next one, I really want to get it to, just tap into more of my creativity and get into a different setting. I had to trap out the car because that's what we got right now, but it's all good. So I'm looking forward for the second quarter, though. First quarter, we finished strong, and you stay up, take off. Let's race. I'll see you guys on the next adventure. Peace.